called Adey, currently studying at Nottingham Trent University, and this is my short story based on a strip of road that I seem to like writing about right now. I like to write about roads for some reason, I don't know why. I'll try and work it out in the future. But it's called M6. Frank's large frame moved like a tanker caught in an oil slick. Bracing himself against the blistering cold, he stepped out onto the asphalt, the road surface ahead of him interrupted by traffic cones and a large jutting trench. He looked up from under his dark grey forehead into the abyss of spitting silver. His steel-capped work boots shone like wet ink in the rain. From behind a large gravel stone mound, he spotted the rat-like figure of Carl approaching, his familiar swagger of suggested trouble, clapping his oversized gloves together in a futile attempt at maintaining warmth within his reflective yellow jacket. He sloped past Frank, still creating his fictional friction. "Fucking code, innit, Frankie? Fucking Nesh, yeah, brother?" Frank ignored him and walked on, the muscles in the side of his jaw rippling. The spray from a Polish freight truck thinly coated his stubble-covered grey face as he kicked past a large dead crow, its carcass strewn amongst the shredded rubber and jagged-edged shrapnel of the hard shoulder. He dropped another traffic cone and tried to stifle the deep contempt he held for Carl. The two men went a long way back, first in Buckley Hall and then the darker days in Grimsford when they shared a cell. It was during this time together that Frank had come to recognise Carl as one of the wickedest men he had ever known, and he had known plenty. Their lives had become intricately woven together during their stints, and by some sick coincidence their time served had been equally reduced on good behaviour, and by a similar twist of fate, both were offered the road maintenance work before let out. Apart from the 3 nights spent in a hostel upon release, unsuccessfully trying to contact his estranged wife, Frank had been forced to deal with Carl's agonising presence constantly for the last 11 years. A black sports car shot past, its windows lit up like an alternate world in the dark. Frank caught a split-second glimpse of a blonde, her red lips pouted on a cigarette, head elegantly tilted, whilst the male driver focused forward into the night. A tiny orange spark hit the road a moment later, dispersing into the misty trail as the car hissed out of sight. Quiet now. Frank dropped the last cone. He coughed and held back, trying to keep his ribcage as wide as possible, letting the dry sensation in his lungs pass to save his worn-out chest from cracking in the cold. Slowly drawing round on himself, he began his return back to the porter cabin as another massive truck forced past. The icy blast from the juggernaut hit the hard shoulder, whipping at the dead crow's oily wingtip, causing it to flap freakishly in the wind. Frank watched the sharp feathers rise and fall rapidly, giving him the morbid impression of 2 black rabbit ears, rearing in shock as each tyre passed. The ragged wing now settled again, pointing directly towards Carl. "Get a move on, you fucking cunt." Carl spat through his teeth and smirked grimly. Frank stopped a metre or so away from him, slowly leaning on some hazard signs, the same as the younger man. Sheets of rain waved in the night sky, and large drops spluttered in the divots and cracks on the tarmac. Frank lit a roll-up and thought back to the only memory that seemed to keep him going on jobs like this. Christmas '76. He envisioned his son running downstairs in his new pyjamas onto the sepia carpet. The house was filled with the aroma of coal and pine, sage and onion. His wife Cheryl, in her orange cardigan, poured the sherry. He watched her smile and felt the warmth of her thin hand on his lower back. "Daydreaming again, you doddering old cunt." Carl's rasp snapped Frank back to reality like a Stanley knife to his temple. And as if on cue, a group of cars passed them at lightning speed. Both men covered their mouths with their pitted fluorescent collars. Carl jittered on the spot, hocking back into his nostrils and spitting through his teeth, making a minute screeching sound. A large saloon cruised past them, slicking over the dark surface, following the road down and round, until it became 2 red dots in the distance of the endless black river. "Do you remember that bird I took home from the diamond last year, Frank?" Thank you.